I'll tell you, I'm a huge John Grisham fan, and none of the books that I ever read prepared me for this.
I can imagine
It
not.
was a very interesting experience, and it's something that I suggest everybody does, but I'll never do it again if I have the choice.
If you could just kind of tell us what's been going on in your life for the last 2 months.
Well, the last 2 months, the last 2 months has been very stressful. Um, Being part of this case, the Levi Chavez case, it was very interesting. I'm glad that I was part of it for the most part, with the exception of the final verdict. But it was a very emotional time, and I'm speaking for myself. I know that some of my fellow jurors felt the same way. We just didn't really know what to expect, and you know, the outcome is pretty hard for a lot of us to deal with at this point. But we did our civic duty, and I think that we need, a lot of this is something that we're going to need to do in order for us to get past this, because we felt like or at least I felt like I failed the court of us in that respect. I still believe that it was not a suicide, especially after finding out a lot of the information that was withheld from us. That I can see a motive, and it was something that I was stressing towards the deliberation, that there had to be something there, that it just didn't seem right, and ultimately I failed in that, in persuading my fellow jurors, but it is what it is, and we all have to live with that decision.
At this point, of course, you and 11 other people ultimately reached the decision to acquit Levi Chavez. How are you feeling about that decision now?
I don't feel very good about it, and during the deliberation portion, I was actually considering holding out and hanging the jury, in hopes that maybe a different jury could find him guilty, or some of the evidence that was made public while we were in there that we didn't get to see would be admitted into the into the next case. But there was no I wasn't certain that the state would prosecute again or go after it again, and because there was so much doubt on every scenario that I could possibly come up with, I had to go with the not guilty verdict, and it's not something that I'm very happy with at all, and I don't think I'll ever will be happy with that. I feel sorry for any destruction that might be in his wake if he so chooses to continue the lifestyle that he's living.
If you don't mind being a little more specific, why do you have second thoughts, and why do you feel badly about the decision that you ultimately reached?
Well, I feel badly because it's a very good possibility that I let a murderer go free. And there's no telling what the guy's capable of. The way that he treated his wife, the person he was supposed to love for his entire life. I mean, from the very beginning of their relationship, he was very abusive to her, and that was made evident during the trial. So a person like that, he's not really somebody that needs to be part of society, and he really should not have been let go. If anything, if they would have allowed us to even consider a lesser charge, we probably would have convicted him.
A lesser charge, such as second-degree murder or manslaughter?
Yeah, involuntary manslaughter, it's like anything. We would have been able to find him guilty on something.
If you don't mind stepping us through your experience from the time Judge Eichwald read the jury instructions to you guys and gave you this huge task to go back and make this decision, and then the moment when you actually reached your decision and turned that over to the bailiff. If you don't mind just kind of stepping us through that.
Sure, sure. Well, I'll even go a little bit further back when we were going through the court case. I'm sure you were in the gallery. You could hear what was going on in the jury. We were enjoying ourselves as far as we could. I mean, there was a lot of laughter and joking, stuff like that. And basically, it was just a stress reliever for us because of the the seriousness of the case. But once it was time to deliberate, everybody's demeanor changed. We went from best friends to we weren't angry with each other or anything like that, but it all set in, just exactly what we needed to take care of and what was at hand, the life of a person, and it didn't. Thinking of the two separate families really was what got me. I mean, one family was going to hate me forever, and the other family was going to be ecstatic, and it was really rough on all of us. The emotion was very strong. We gave our final speeches. We kind of went in a circle and discussed as to why we felt the way that we did and our verdict. We did a silent verdict, and when everything was said and done, that's when we came up with the unanimous decision that he was not guilty. And a few of the women bursted into tears because at that point, I think we just realized what we did, but it was too late, And myself, I felt really bad because I kept thinking I should just hang this jury. That was my big thing, is maybe somebody else can finish what we ultimately believe, and find him guilty at some respect, but it was very tough. It was a really emotional time for all of us. And then one other thing kicked in after that is having to face the wall of reporters, walking out of there, and it was very confusing. A lot of us felt lost. I know I did. I made a beeline for my car, and I wasn't going to talk to anybody. I just needed to get the hell out of there. I wasn't happy with myself, and a lot of the jurors felt the same way, but we did what we had to do.
In the end, why didn't you ultimately decide to hang the jury?
Because I wasn't informed enough on it. I didn't really know how the law worked, and if I hung the jury, I was under the impression that he'd be set free anyway. But two, basically that's it. I didn't know or realize that if I did hang the jury, that it could go to a different trial if the state was to go after it again. And I thinking back, I'm pretty sure they would have. They're no nonsense people, and I should have given them that chance to go ahead and try it again with some evidence that they could have pulled in with another judge, another court, whatever. Nothing. I'm not taking away anything from the judge. He was an amazing man, and I think he did a wonderful job. So.
Was that a question that you considered asking? What would happen if I decided to hang the jury? Did you feel like you had the option to do that?
Everything happened so fast that I didn't. And I wish I would have. I wish I would have spoke up a little bit, but the emotions were so high, the tension was so thick that really I didn't have a lot of time to think about that specific detail, as far as hanging the jury. And I wish I would have. I really do. I really wish I would have.
Was there an early vote, like when you guys first retired to the jury room to do deliberations? What was the first thing that happened?
The first thing that happened, we actually didn't vote right away. We started going over the evidence and looking at everything, the pictures, which will probably haunt me forever. And we handled the weapon. I'm a bit proficient with handguns, so I kind of I really knew what was going on with that. But we read the diary. We went through a lot of different things. I mean, there was over 300 pieces of evidence to look at. So we tried to look at it. After that, I would say about 4 or 5 hours after that, we decided, okay, let's go ahead and see where we're standing. And the vote at that time was 6 not guilty, 4 guilty, and 2 undecided.
You were one of the guilty?
I was one of the undecided.
Okay.
But I was leaning towards guilty. I was worried at that point that everybody was going to go not guilty, and I just didn't want it to stop there. So I went undecided without, but I was leaning towards guilty the whole time. And, I can be a little bit abrasive, and my fellow jurors will tell you the same thing, but I was bringing up a lot of details on why I thought he was guilty, and it was upsetting a couple of people. But I was going to hold fast to that, and when we took the second vote, that's when we all went not guilty.
What were some of those details that you were bringing up about why you thought he was guilty that were maybe rubbing people the wrong way?
Well, a lot of it had to do with the way that he was treating Tara. Also, something that they kept throwing in my face was Deborah Romero didn't know what time he showed up. So I was trying to turn that around and say, exactly, she didn't know what time he showed up. There was a window of opportunity there for him to go ahead and do this. And okay, his cell phone turned off around 10:30 or so, if I remember correctly, the night of Tara's death. And her last message to him was around 1:30 that morning. So there was, you have between 1:30 and dawn before, for him to do what he needed to, what I feel he did. And still slide back into bed with Deborah Romero, and she wouldn't have known the difference. Now, a lot of the jurors are saying, well, that's taken a lot of chance. What if Deborah would have woken up? What if this would have happened? What if that? It didn't happen, and Tara's gone. So it doesn't really matter, the what could have happened. What has happened is Tara's gone, and I strongly believe that it was not suicide. Despite all of the entries in her journal, I don't think she killed herself, and not the way that they're saying. Also, one of the pieces of evidence was after the autopsy was done, they showed her tongue. They're saying that she put the gun in upside down in her mouth, pulled the trigger, and she shoved it far back that, it would leave soot at the back of the tongue. But if you really look at that picture, any recoil, anything like that from the site would have caused some kind of abrasion on the tongue, and there was nothing there, just the soot. They didn't find any abrasions anywhere in her inner mouth. There was no struggles. She was probably asleep. And if you look at a handgun, it's a lot easier to slide it in sideways than upside down. I mean, it's thinner. It would fit a little bit easier, and it does not take much. It doesn't take very long to pull a trigger. So, the lack of struggle, the lack of struggle, it really didn't factor in for me. And neither did the seating and the unseating of the magazine. I didn't think that was really vital information or evidence. At any time that could have been released. It could have been released by OMI when they were taking pictures. It could have been released by Aaron Jones when he was doing his shabby investigation. There was just too many other factors involved that I was not considering, because ultimately, Tara was dead and it didn't look right. The pictures didn't look at the pictures. Those will tell you. Listen to the 911 call. That'll tell you. He's not crying in that. That's not real. There's no way. Listen to it and judge for yourself.
What about the pictures struck you as inconsistent with suicide?
The way that the gun was laying in her hand, it didn't, well, not in her hand, it was laying somewhere in this area. there's a recoil, and she would have had to hold it with both hands because she was a little, she was a little girl. If after shooting herself, in my opinion, it would have just landed flat on her chest. And even if she rolled, like they're saying that she did, after, it probably wouldn't have landed here. It would have probably been further down, lower on her torso. Also, too, when you look at her fingernails, and they are pristine, beautifully manicured. There's nothing on her hands, and right next to her hand is a remote control that to me looked like she was holding it or fell asleep holding it, and that's why her body was positioned the way that it was. Of course, this is just my opinion. Others do not share this opinion. The suicidologist brought up a lot of interesting evidence that I really can't recall at this point that I personally didn't agree with. I didn't, of course he's being paid by the defense to say what he's got to say. So there was just too many things that were going on that I didn't agree with, and according to my fellow jurors, they were very shocked. And when we first started out the trial, it seemed like all of the witnesses that were being brought in for the prosecution were confirming the defense's case, and it had me wondering, well, maybe she did do it. But once we started getting into the pictures and stuff like that, it didn't set right. There was just something wrong there.
What did you do after you left the parking lot of the courthouse that day after reaching your verdict?
As soon as I left the parking lot, I went and had a stiff drink. I really did. I went to one of the local casinos there with some of my other jurors, and we had a drink and just try to discuss a little bit more what we just went through, and to let it go. Try to just let it go. But and it was a time that I'll remember, because it was a bonding moment for some of us, and there's only 11 other people in this entire world who will know exactly what I went through, and they went through it in their own ways, and but we're kind of joined at that point for the rest of our lives, and we did consider ourselves family there, and for the most part we enjoyed each other's company. So when we did meet up, and it was just a few of us, and I'm not going to name any names, but it was a good stress reliever, and I think something that we really needed to do, because we knew at that point it was time to go on with our lives, or at least try to.
And then what happened?
Well, then what happened? I have some buddies that have a podcast. The Android Virus and Sean. Yeah. And I was talking to them about it, and they asked me if I would give them an interview. And since they're my buddies, I agreed to it. I figured, why not? It would give me a chance to get some of that, some of it out, and hopefully it would be a little bit more therapeutic, and allowing me to move on. So I gave them the interview, which was fun. Had its moments, and but from there it just kind of ballooned. A TV station requested an interview, and so I got one of my fellow jurors to come in with me, and we did the interview together. Separate parts, but at the same time.
Describe for me a little bit, please, how you came to learn some of the things that weren't presented at trial, what you learned, and how that impacted you.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up. We were sitting at the bar, and it was splattered all over the TVs. Yeah, we're sitting at a table, and we see this truck, and it's kind of loud in the bar. So they were showing closed caption, I guess, writing underneath about how they have the truck and how it's been in Valencia County, and There were something about it not being admitted in court, and just a lot of different stuff like that. So after we had our drinks, I went home and I started looking it up on the internet and just trying to find whatever I could as far as that goes. And I wasn't I wasn't very happy with it, and it struck really hard. Knowing, it's kind of confirming that I just quite possibly let a murderer go free, and I did so in a way that he can't be charged again for it because of double jeopardy. That's it's a sick feeling,
What did you see specifically in terms of information about the truck that made you feel differently about the case?
Well, from what I understand, originally he reported that he had the keys to the truck, and that it was stolen. And from what I have recently heard, that they found the keys with the truck, and that it was down in Mexico, and everything was, it didn't look like there was any kind of damage to it whatsoever. Another thing that I found out was that his uncle, who was a police officer in Santa Rosa, had a similar experience with his handgun, mysteriously being used for suicide, and there's just too close of a connection there. So another thing too that really hit me the wrong way was, I guess Levi and one of his family members is looking to open a bar, and they're going to call it the Angry Wife. Seriously, how distasteful can you get? It's that arrogance that's going to end up getting him at the end, I think. He should be happy with the verdict and lay low, but I don't think that's in his nature.
Were those things, particularly the information you just mentioned about the truck, that would have gone to motive? Is that part of what was lacking for you in the jury room?
That was part of it. I was thinking the motive, and this is what really angered some of my jurors, my fellow jurors. I made a statement that a bullet was cheaper than a divorce, and that was one of the motives, because he was already in debt. He was looking for any way to get money. I'm thinking the suicide clause in his paperwork, when he switched from the Air National Guard to the Army National Guard. Really, who does that? And why would you do that? The Air Force seems to be a little bit more prestigious as far as I've been told, because I have friends in the Air Force. So in order to do that, to check the suicide clause, there's just too many things that I was throwing out there that was getting shot down. But had the truck been admitted, I think that would have been enough motive to at least sway a couple of more jurors. And then maybe we could have gone after as a group, gone after the guilty verdict. But, it just didn't work out that way.
What's your overall impression of Levi Chavez?
Ooh, can I say that?
Please.
No, he is arrogant. He's a typical alpha male piece of crap. He believes that it's all about him, and it's not. It's not, and he's going to find out the hard way. Karma she can be a mad woman at times, and it's going to come around and get him. He is going to get his. You don't live a lifestyle like that. You don't mistreat people. You just don't treat people like that. If he didn't love her, he should have left her a long time ago. Not have happened what happened. But as far as my feelings of Levi Chavez, he's a significant nothing, and he deserves everything that's going to come his way. And he should, just out of kindness, allow his children to see their real parents, which are the Cordovas. They're the ones that took care of them and raised them. You know. Just quit being a jerk. Just quit being a jerk.
What did you make of his testimony?
I didn't believe a word that came out of his mouth. I really didn't. I wasn't impressed with him. I mean, I'm in sales. That's what I do for a living. I read people and listen to voice intonations. He didn't impress me. I didn't buy anything that he was saying.
What do you believe today, sitting here talking to us, happened to Tara Chavez?
I believe she was murdered. I do. I honestly believe she was murdered. Whether or not it was by Levi Chavez, I don't know. I can't say. But I don't think she killed herself. She had way too much going on. Sure, she was going through an emotional roller coaster. Her diary showed that. But I know a lot of people who write out their feelings, especially their feelings of depression and negative emotions, and that's their outlet so that they can continue to move on. The last couple of entries in her diary stated that she was happy. She was planning a business. She was getting ready to move on with herself. She was getting ready to get those divorce papers signed, and that would have been a huge financial burden on Levi Chavez.
What's your experience been like in the last week and a half since you rendered the verdict? Have you stayed in touch with some of the other jurors? Have you spoken with the Cordovas, for example? Anything like that?
I have not spoken with the Cordovas. To be quite honest with you, I don't know what I would say to them. Other than I am really sorry and my deepest condolences. I don't even think I could look them in the eye. That's how much shame that I have right now for the verdict that I voted on. Some of my other jurors, I have kept in touch with them. As of late, not really. We're all trying to move on with our lives the last couple of days. Plus, once I found out that they were going to do the dateline, I wasn't too happy with that. So I just kind of pulled back a little bit. But they are friends, I think, that I will keep forever. We went through a really hard experience, and although we're all very different, we come from totally different backgrounds, we got along really well, and we banded together, I think, and they are good people, and I'm really glad that I met them.
What will you do next?
I'm just gonna go back to work. I mean, I have plans for a little restaurant, that I've been thinking about for several years, and a friend of mine, Wendy, she's pushing me in that direction to get that going, because it's what kind of my passion is, to cook, and I think it's time for me to start looking at something like that as a little bit more positive thing in my life, so that I can move on from this. But I do love my job where I'm at now too, so I don't know, it kind of I'm not really sure at this point. I have a dream, but I have a really good job, and I'll continue to do both, work towards both. So
what were your impressions of the attorneys in the case?
Well, there was a few times where I wasn't very impressed. The prosecution holding up pictures and giggling. Mr. Serta getting the names wrong, calling Mr. Cordova Chavez and vice versa. It didn't set right with me. You need to know who's in front of you and pay attention to what you're doing. Mr. Cordova could have taken great offense to that, but he held his cool. So there was a lack of professionalism there, but at the same time, I was impressed with them, and they had moments of brilliance that I found very interesting as well. So, if they fine tune their performance in the courtroom, Well, they could become world-class attorneys, in my opinion.
Thank you so much.